on the 3.3 drought update.
So the board put us in a drought alert condition back in August of 2014, and the State Water Resources Control Board came out with some restrictions that were put into effect in July. And so the emergency regulation that the State Water Resources Control Board put on all the water agencies within the state of California was set to expire in April. And so the State Water Resources Control Board went back and basically had a meeting just yesterday. I sent out an email about it with an attachment and the list of details. So they're extending it. They've got some new requirements for all the water agencies up and down California. The big ones for you to gather in that are new and different is that now you're not allowed to irrigate if it's raining or 48 hours after measurable rain. That's a big deal. Restaurants are only going to serve water on request. That's already in our level 2 drought status, so we're already doing that, but now it's a statewide thing. And hotels and motels gonna need to offer guests the opportunity to not change their laundry, their linens, and their towels, and have that as an item that is statewide and not just under local ordinances. I want to just share real quick, when I first got here, I wanted to reach out to the hotels and motels just to get them in compliance with our level 2 drought. Kind of got ignored a little bit, didn't get any call back. Followed up today with an email, said, hey, this thing is now coming from the state. Do you need some help? Do you want some flyers? And there's basically 5 hotels here in town, and I got 3 of them to call me back today. So kind of nice thing. It's where, you know, it's coming down from the state. They'll make that change. The other thing too is we've already started reaching out to the restaurants. Had some really nice help from Corey, one of our who runs the FOG program, to get me the restaurants that would serve you water. There's a lot of restaurants, you go in, you get your stuff, you take it out, you know, drive through a Jack in the Box. They're not gonna hand you glasses of water. He got me specifically the sit-down restaurants where it would be typical to get served a glass of water, and we already started the outreach to them. Some of the other things that are included in the state's modifications doesn't necessarily impact us in any way, but if an agency doesn't have a restriction on the number of days, right now we have 1 day per week irrigation, but if you don't have one, you get 2. And the interesting thing about that one is I guess that would extend into the summertime. You know, in the summertime, we let people move up to 3 days per week irrigation. If you don't have one, you're going to get 2 in the summertime. That's going to be really difficult. Suppliers need to notify customers of leaks. This is something that the district already does. Talk to Zach and Meters, and they already take this outreach effort when they see spikes in consumption. And then here's the other thing we're going to have to do as an agency is we're going to have to report on descriptive stats on water conservation compliance and enforcement efforts. So the state's really looking for water agencies to enhance their enforcement efforts, and met with I think Ed's still here. He might not be here, but the plan is to have some of the construction and collection crews, you know, help out with enforcement efforts and get a plan to put in front of the board and let you know about it, of what exactly we're going to do to try and make sure we have enforcement procedures in place that all staff can follow, and that we can report to the state and say, well, we issued this many letters and we gave notices of violations and here's how many fines we gave. Director Lamb wanted me to keep it real, or General Manager Lamb wanted me to keep it short. I just got a couple other slides. The interesting thing is the consumption's about the same in water production. If you look back at January, you can see how high it was back in 2014. Residential gallons per day creeping up. A lot of this warm weather does that kind of thing. That's a big driver of it. And then drought calls, and I've been getting some of those myself. Water waste complaints, that's typically what we see. And then obviously there's some fiscal impacts to the drought in that we don't sell as much water, but the other side of that coin is we don't have to purchase as much. So if you got questions on drought, I'd love to take them.
I have one question. Can you explain precisely what a recirculating, you can have a fountain if it's recirculating?
Yeah, so.
What does that mean exactly? Because I've had so many people, and Totally confused.
This is a great question. So sometimes you don't see them anymore these days. That's kind of a no-no. But back in the past, the single pass-through fountain where the water came in, went up, sprayed into the air and drained back out and disappeared into the sewage system. That just doesn't happen anymore. So typically there's a recirculating pump that moves that water through. As long as you're doing that, you're okay. And in fact, I think you're all aware the rocks out front, it's recirculating, but it's also rainwater.
Okay. So as long as it's putting the water back into something, you may have to fill that container over and over.
From time to time.
But
You're going to
over
lose some
time, but-
evaporation.
Yeah, evaporate.
That's what people said, well, I'm recirculating, and then they're saying, but you're not, you have to fill it once a week. I'm like, now I don't know.
Right.
Okay,
No,
that's
that's-
the answer.
It's like a swimming pool, there's evaporation loss.
That,
Yeah,
okay.
it's going to happen. There's just kind of
Okay.
no way to stop it.
Thank you. Now I'll know what to tell them. Yes, Director Sinema.
Thanks for the presentation. I do like all these graphs and charts and kind of the trending of information that we're getting, but I was at last week the San Diego North EDC Economic Summit, and I can tell you, I walked in the door and I got just bombarded by probably 7 or 8 people, mostly in the development community, who are, what's going on, and when will there possibly be a moratorium or restrictions on meters and going in and development? And my kind of takeaway from the past, say, 4 to 6 months here has been that we were getting a lot closer to that point than it seems that we are. It seems like the actual truth is maybe sometime in 2016. I looked at Director Hernandez, who happened to be standing next to me when this onslaught came, and I said, is your understanding this is kind of more of a 2015 issue versus a 2016? And he said yes. So at least 2/5 of us were under the impression that there's these water issues were going to be much more immediate than they.
I'll be getting to that part.
What's that?
I'll get to that part
Okay.
when I get
And
to
so
my report.
my takeaway from this, and it's not a big deal, but in addition to these slides, if we could, to the extent that information is available, if we could get some sort of timeline of the meetings, the state meetings that are taking place, what they're considering, and a brief one-page slide, so it's not a whole book to go through, but just so if we are out and about in the community, we start getting these questions, we can quickly be able to provide some accurate information. Because I had to make a couple of phone calls later in the week as I learned some more information about and kind of correct some things that I had said based off of my misperception of what I picked up by coming to these meetings.
Right.
So,
Well, and there's a certain amount of information that's coming from the state, there's a certain amount of information coming from the Metropolitan Water District, and there's some information coming from the County Water Authority, and then from your local water service provider, in this case, Vallecitos. So, there's different lenses that are looking at it.
Well,
Yes.
if I could echo something, I'm gathering there's a lot of Chicken Little happening out there. And I'm not sure where it's coming from or who it's coming from, or who really knows and who doesn't know. Because I've heard from some authorities this year, yeah, we hit phase 3 any second now. And then I've heard, nah, it can't happen until next year from other officials. So the real question is, we need the straight skinny from our public information officer as to when this could happen.
My answer to you is, it looks like Metropolitan's going to invoke a level 2 at some point, and it'll be mitigated by the County Water Authority to a certain percent. So we're going to have probably some water allocations, but it'll be mitigated by local supplies within the county, and so we'll have mandated reductions that we're required to have. But I don't hear that we're going to go to level 3. That's not what I've heard. Dennis, you want to expand?
I'll get to that when I get to my report. I've got some slides and stuff I'll show you that. As far as Chicken Little, Director Martin, I think it is a little Chicken Little, but I think you've also got some ostriches out there because they don't want to acknowledge it. And again, when I show you some slides here, you're going to see where the reality of it is. And my fear is if they don't take action this year, which they're going to go 2 at a minimum, I think they'll start at 3. But you got to remember, a Metropolitan Water, and I'll explain this when I get to my part, a Metropolitan 3 is not a San Diego 2. A Metropolitan 4 is a San Diego 2, and then it goes to a 3. But there's numbers that kick in all the way through here, and I'll show you some numbers. We'll get you a timeline, Director Snell. It is best guess at best. So I'll show you some of why I'm saying that in a second.
Okay. And one other question, maybe I could bring this up during director comments, but I don't know when the last time the board has had maybe a presentation from the Building Industry Association or a different trade group like that. I know we haven't had one since I've been on the board, but I think that they had some of their own thoughts and concerns and questions about how they might be able to mitigate some of their water impacts. And so maybe in the future, if the board is agreeable, we can invite the BIA in just to give them 10, 15 minutes to make a presentation. I don't know if that's happened before in the past, but it sounds like this is gonna, it seems to me, because I live out here too, and there's no rain, there's no water, so this is gonna become a bigger and bigger issue. And as I've kind of shown myself to be one who just likes to get all parties in the room and to kind of hash things out so the information's open and available to everybody, why not be proactive and kind of get out in front of this and start hearing what all sides of the story is. Throw it out there.
Good?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The next item, 3.4, starts on page 47. There's a seat, there's staggered terms coming up for CSDA. The local representative currently right now in the seat that will be open is Joe McKenzie. We don't have to support anybody here. We're not doing anything to support it. This is purely if any of you, as board members, would like to serve or put your name in the hat for the election on CSDA, then we would take a nomination today, and then we would actually make that on your behalf. If nobody here wants to take a shot at that seat for CSDA, there is no action necessary on behalf of the board.
Is there anyone here interested in running that position? No, there's not.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. And last item is 3.5, the North San Diego Water Reuse Coalition.
This has come back, Director, what's your name, Hernandez?
Hey, you. Hey, you.
Hey, you. Director Hernandez, we've been in this North County group for a while, and the funding, the next round for the funding of Prop 84 is coming through. The Furman Group, who will actually be speaking to you next month at the CAWA meeting, Hal Furman is our, I keep wanting to call them marketers, or not marketers. Lobbyists. On behalf of the group, they do go back. Kim is going back. It's the week of April 13th and 14th. I think at this time, it's only Kim. The other people, last time, I think Greg went last time, and Dr. Quist.
Yeah, there's three of us thus far that are going. Jason, can't remember his last name, from Oceanside, is being encouraged to go, as
Yeah.
well as City Councilman Jerry, can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Is also reviewing it. So I think there's probably going to be 4 or 5 of us that are going to be going back.
Yeah, I think it's money well worth the time and effort to get here. And the biggest reason is, we've all received some funds. We've got about a $380,000 receipt that we've gotten so far for props. But the bigger picture here is, some of it's towards the Prop 1 money for California, and some of it's being in place and in line in Washington. Because you got to remember, all the money for public works goes through the transportation group, which is kind of funny, which is where the water money comes from. And they're the only ones who managed to get it through this year without getting it bound up in all the different things. So the bigger part here is not only that we have direct access to the money, but we're getting direct access to the legislators, and they remember us. Because when the bigger issues come out and there's money there, you've got DWP, you've got LA Water Power, you've got San Francisco PUD, they jump in and they want to go for all of the money.
Yeah.
So it's well worth sending somebody to be a representative on this. Ordinance number 190, now 194, does require board authorization for this trip.
So who are we sending?
Jim is the one who's,
Director Hernandez.
Excuse me, Director Hernandez, I'm sorry.
He knows exactly.
I'll move to authorize payment of travel expenses and per diem for Director Hernandez's attendance on behalf of the district.
I would certainly second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say
Yeah.
aye.
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 And those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring back some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bring
We
it, take
didn't
it
put a
back.
caveat on there, but we should have, as long as we bring back,
I will bring back some money.
We should commission it.
not just for yourself.
Can you throw
but
mine
for
up?
poker games.
Bring an empty suitcase.
Okay, that's the end of the action reports, if I've read my thing right. And we'll now have a report from the general manager.
I'll go through this as quickly as I can to get us into
Oh,
closed
no, take your
session.
time, Dennis, really.
Yeah, I know.
We're, beyond hope here.
Already talked about the Water Authority. We're still waiting to get the final version back from them to bring forward the desal to you. It's looking like a second meeting in April at this point. The drought monitoring that Chris spoke about, some of the things that we're starting to really ramp up just because of perceptions and everything else is met with Lisa and Chris and the rest of the PR department along with operations. We've put a lot more of these standalone signs that you see out front here. I called the city manager last week and said, hey, you're probably gonna hear from your staff that this is not what you guys normally allow, and he says, we got a big lobby. So anyway, within a matter of minutes, he actually called me back and said, oh, you're right, they already came and called me. So we've got some new big stands. We'll put at City Hall, we'll put in the library, the county library. We're meeting with the school district to get them and try to get them in all the schools. We're trying to get on the marquees at the high school. So we're really trying to ramp up stuff that is just out there and in their face, to be honest. So we're working, doing quite a bit on that. We're also going to start, I don't want to call them water cops because I don't like that, and we're not going to bring in outside resources because that's just dangerous. What we're going to do is modify the work hours for O&M staff. It'll be 2 groups of 2 because we're sending them out in pairs, and we're not going to send them out alone at 4 in the morning. But they're going to go out. Basically, our water demand shows that most irrigation takes place between 4 a.m. and about 6:30 a.m. So we're going to modify their work hours from 6:30 to 4:30, from basically 4 to 2:30, just those 2. So we're going to start that probably in April. We're getting together all the steps, so everybody follows the same steps, who calls, who notifies, and all that. So we're going to really start ramping it up. It was 97 to 98 at my house Saturday and Sunday. It was just hot.
Yeah.
because you don't have any landscaping.
Yeah, I just got
It'd
my.
be cool if you had some trees.
Yeah, it probably would have. It was reflecting off the rocks and I was
Exactly.
heating my house up. So I was helping perpetuate the global warming. So we are doing a lot more stuff towards that. I'll get to this in a minute. Director Snella mentioned to me that he's going to be going on vacation in April, so we wanted to make sure we didn't have any policy-related issues coming forward. So for the April 1st meeting, I don't think you guys will be done with your audit interviews until coming back on the 18th or 15th. So that's good. The COP things you heard here, there's nothing else we need to do at this point. So there's no policy-related issues coming, so I think we're okay from that standpoint.
We have a meeting on April Fool's Day?
April 1st?
Really?
Yeah. Where do you see the presentations?
Looking forward to it, should be fun.
The drought, so that's the drought monitoring, drought conditions. Okay, just up on your screen, if you go ahead, next slide, please, Dan. This is the big one that, the green dotted, that's the average of how much rain all the Northern California 8 station index gets. The red one is the worst case that we've had in the past underneath. And that light blue, that's the average amount of water. So you got the dark blue line there, and man, everybody was happy come December. We got rain, poof, we're above the average. Life is good, we're at 100% on the Colorado River basin. We're good to go, plenty of water. Well, here we are halfway through March, and there is nothing in the future predicted to bring any water in whatsoever. So you can see where that blue line's going. It's probably just going to continue due east, and it will be. This goes to Mike to your question on what we're hearing and what people are saying and thinking. It would take an absolute act of quite a few people to get the water up to do it. So we're on record for an absolute low as far as water goes. Next, please. This is a scary one. The blue is your average snowpack with water content. We're less than, right now, we're less than about 3.5% of total snowpack. And you got to remember, the snowpack is what brings the water in August, September, October, November. We don't store it. So the fear is, there's a lot of theories being made on where the water's going to come from, where it's going to come from. There is no snow to create that water later during the summer months. Next, please. Lake Orville. You can see again, the two conditions where we thought, oh wow, we're gonna pick up a lot of water compared to the worst case right there. Now we're actually headed down below what the normal is. My understanding is the Department of Water Resources has now stopped all discharges from Lake Orville, and they're holding that water back in case we hit the end of 2015 to where they at least have some water for 2016. They're not going to release any more water out of Orville this year, period. The only way to conserve is no use. So they've already made the decision Orville is not going to be releasing any more water. Next, please. Here's your average rainfall. Yeah, we're a little bit more right now, but that's forecast on what they think we're going to get. So that 50% might really be 45, might be 48, might be 43. So that just puts you in perspective. We're a little bit better than 2014, but it's still the 9th lowest rainfall in the last 10-year period. So it is not in any way good for people to sit back and think, we can probably make it through the year, we'll be okay. Next, please. You may recall back in, again, January, everybody was happy as could be. Colorado was at 103, 105, 108% of snowpack and rain. Well, since January, we haven't had any rain, and we still go through the end of the month and into April. So that 80%, 82% may really be 70-ish. We don't know. And with the warmth of what they've got in that area too, they're getting a little more runoff now, but they need the runoff later. So you can see in 2014, we were at 44%. 2015, we're at 43. So it has not improved. And the amount of snowpack and water is substantially less than it was last year. Next. Water inflow, same thing. You can see what was coming in before for 2014 was at 90. It was right at 98% of normal inflow into the lake. This year they're projecting 80% as of now. That again, that inflow into the lake could be substantially less when we get through the water month. Next, please. You have to click on these one at a time. It'll bring up the average rain. Maybe. There we go. There we go, December. Oop, go back now. Okay, so you can see the 294% of average in December that we got. Keep in mind, that's in San Diego. Rainfall down here, all it does is mean we turn our sprinklers off.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything beyond that. It really doesn't. They can catch it in reservoirs that they have, and we're actually, that was a question asked by Hala from San Diego yesterday when we had our MAM meeting, was what's the inflow into local? Because we're trying to determine what our allocations may be, what do we have locally. And remember, water down in San Vicente is emergency storage. That's not operational storage. That's only there for emergencies. So we didn't put water in there that we can bring, and besides that, it's not enough to do much for the county anyway. It's 3 to 6 months supply. So you can see the overall rainfall is 77%. Excuse me, 77%, and again, that's without a complete March, so we don't know what it will be when it actually comes down to it. Next, please. This is the tailing thing, the temperatures. 2015 and 2014. In 2015, we've managed to exceed, except for 2 months, the average temperature by up to, pushing 5 degrees in October, and they set records throughout San Diego Sunday on temperatures. So it's not looking good. Next, please. Here's the water demands. So you can see where, everybody's done a good job. December, obviously, the 2015 demand was way off. Yeah, we got 300% of normal in December. I'm kind of afraid to see what March is going to look like with this hot weather that we've had. So it's going to be very interesting. Next, please. Okay, this is a great rain projection because the rain usually ends around the end of March. So what they're saying right now, it's an equal chance of rain or no rain. Imagine that. So each of you guys have a quarter, pick it out and flip it, and we'll see what it does. They say the small El Nino is formed, but we're 90% through the rain period. It's highly doubtful it's community value. Next, please. Temperatures continue, precipitation outlet, probability below. Even though they say they don't know, we are down at the probability of probably not getting any more rain at this point through the year. If we do, it's probably going to be very minimal. Next, please. And then the temperature outlook is looking it to be above normal, continuing. So it's a combination of no snow, no rain, and higher than normal temperatures. So it's sort of the perfect storm is coming at us. Next, please. I think that might be, okay. Chris already went over this. Next. I think that's it. To some of the questions that you guys have brought up as far as the when and what, Metropolitan will be going to their board in April and determining how much water they have to go through. We know there's an allocation coming. Right now, they've given out some very rosy projections of, hey, if we get 30, right now, they're assuming between 20 and 35% state water project allocation. It's at 20 right now. They're thinking it might go to 25. I have no idea how. The only saving grace was during that rain, they pumped some extra water to San Luis Rey. So they got San Luis Rey back up a little bit. 2 years ago, they started at 10, went to 5, and went to 0. So it can go backwards as well. That's the uncertainty, Mike, that we don't know where it's going. If they go to, right now, if they get 40%, they're assuming they will go to a stage 2 curtailment, which is 10%. It's not our stage 2. Their stage 3 is not our stage 3. That's where a lot of the confusion is they have different triggers that cause these things. I showed you, I think 2 board meetings ago, the history of what took place back in 1991 and 93. We went from a level 1 to a level 6, which didn't even exist, in 123 days. And so they're sitting there and they knew how much water they had. Oh, we're good. 2 weeks later, let's go to level 2. 2 weeks later, we need to create a 4. So they went from 20% on ag to 70%. They went from 20% on domestic M&I to 50% in 123 days, 132 days. Some ungodly small time period. And yet they did this after the rainy season was over when they thought they knew how much water they had. That's where I'm afraid this is going to go. They're trying to buy water up off the Russian River right now from the rice farmers. They can, because they have table A entitlements. But there's also talk right now that there could be allocations on the Russian River because there's no water coming into the Russian River. If there's no water coming to the Russian River, there's no 100,000 acre feet for them to sell. So where we will be, we really don't know. That's the problem, is nobody really knows what Met's going to do. They say they can get it. They say they're buying. They think they've got 100,000 acre feet here, 100,000 acre feet there. They're assuming they're going to get their full allocation on the Colorado River Aqueduct, yet we're down at 80% on snowpack, and it could be even less by the time we get through April. So to assume they're going to get 100% of flow when there's only 70 to 80% of snowpack, it doesn't add up. We unfortunately rely upon the Water Authority. The Water Authority has to rely upon Metropolitan. Metropolitan has to rely on the State Water Project. Nobody's going to make those decisions down the line until April, going into May. That's the trick. We don't know right now because of the local supplies that San Diego's built. Let's say Met does a 15%. The local supplies that have been built, we think we can mitigate that down to only 7.5% additional curtailment. So if we can stay 20% or under total, that keeps us in level 2. If that escalates rapidly, we will go into level 3 very quickly. Level 3 is when all the carnage really begins. But we just don't know. That's the problem, is nobody knows. We don't know what the rainfall is going to be. We don't know if there's going to be allocations on the Feather River, which means they can't buy that water, which they're banking on. We don't know what additional groundwater stuff is going to happen, where they can't pump it out anymore because they don't have their supply. It's not out there. They just can't find it. It doesn't exist. So, we can pull together a time frame and what they can be, and we'll give you the general times. But what level, we don't know. The Water Authority is going back. We had NAM Tuesday morning, and they're going back and starting to project what they think the allocations will be by agency if they do a level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. But they're still having to make assumptions on 20%, 30%, 40%, or none. So It's not Chicken Little. There's a whole lot of real nasty scenarios that could happen. The problem is if they don't start at the right level and they don't get enough conservation, it will escalate very quickly. That's the fear I have.
Director Ellinger.
Yeah, Dennis, you said for Met to go to a stage 2, they'd have to have a 40% statewide project?
25 to 35.
Oh, okay, misunderstood what you said.
And their best planning is they're gonna get 40%.
But right now it's at 1.
It's at
Right now it's at
20.
20.
Did you?
Just, yeah, and I know this isn't really for anything on our district, our staff. It sounds like we're kind of at the mercy of a lot of different agencies, but given the potentially severe ramifications that some of these drought stages and the restrictions involve, I think it would be more responsible government, if you will, if there was some sort of educated guesses that were taken into place and then putting out some sort of a 6-month plan of what they can expect, best guess, so that the business community who hires people and the development community who builds homes and also hires people as well can start, at least preparing based off of information 6 months in advance instead of waking up one day and
The BIA is coordinating. I'm kind of surprised when I got a phone call from Director Hernandez last Sunday, that he'd heard from a rep from the BIA that we were going to stop selling meters in April. And then I bet we backed it down to where it came from, but they are already in ongoing conversations with the Water Authority over the status of all these different things. And the Water Authority, from a regional standpoint, is the one that they should be talking to from a countywide standard, because every agency has different things that they have. We do have a memo at the front counter. I put it out there and I'll update it when I have some information, but it already tells them, these are all the things that we have in place. This is what you need to do. Here's the policies. Here's what can happen. We already have that at the counter. We've had that out there for 2 months.
And Director.
Some of it I'm finding is I'm confused. You were very eloquent at stating it, but I just still didn't get it, so I apologize. You said it was a few years ago we went to a level 6. At the same time, you said level 3 there's carnage, and I don't remember the carnage when we were at level 6, whatever that was.
That was the March Miracle.
But what I'm saying is you were already at level 6, but I didn't see you stopping any building.
We were. What happened was Metropolitan started at 1, 2, and 3. Now, remember, their 1, 2, and 3 is not our 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so what does that mean? Our unit doesn't mean the same unit in Escondido?
No.
We're misusing terminologies.
No, they didn't have these higher units. We already had a policy in place that was comparable to the whole county. So Metropolitan, when they went from 3, 4, 5, they didn't even have these levels. They didn't exist.
Well,
They
they
were
have them
making
now.
them as
They
they
have them
went.
now.
They have them now.
Okay.
So when they went to level 6, which was the major curtailment, and I was talking to Director Evans about this, I was the engineering manager at that point, I just signed all the letters on behalf of the district to every developer. No more meters, no more water. And it's not only that, there's a provision in our construction agreement that goes above and beyond what the state, what Met or Water Authority does, is if there is no water, it doesn't matter if you got a house ready to occupy, you don't get it.
Sure.
That's where we were at back then. So the carnage was starting.
But
They
it
were
didn't
all-
happen.
But no, it didn't happen. Literally, the March Miracle stopped it. Yeah, I mean, it rained for 3 weeks straight at the end of March.
I do remember that.
So that stopped the actual carnage starting. I mean, it was, trust me, it was happening.
So when I
Correct.
listen to levels on the television, should I be listening to Met levels or
Ours.
our levels?
Our level, 3,
Okay.
2 or 3.
But I
And
think,
when we
I
hit
think-
level 3,
No more houses, no more meters, no more construction water.
okay,
Everything.
but when Met hits level 3, it doesn't mean that.
No.
Met would have to hit level 6 for us to hit level 3.
No, it's somewhere below that
You
now.
know what it is, the way I have it, had it explained at the Water Authority, is that Met controls its allocation, so they may go to a level 3, which would, if we were on their level, we would do what they do at level 3. But the Water Authority, because it's made the deals with the Imperial Irrigation District, because we were getting water from the Colorado, because we have desal, because we've done some reclamations and things like that, and because we've already, as a county, been in conservation, We have enough water already, so let's say in supply, available to us, that when Met tells us we're going to give you only 20%, and that would normally cut off the meters, the water authority looks at all of the water available in the county and will come back and say, based on everything we know, and the fact that we have this supply, and we have water coming extra from the QSA, it's not available to Met. You might only be at 30, and therefore we won't go to level 3, but we'll be real close. That's where the discrepancy comes. So if you're listening to the news and they tell you that Met's going to a 3, you know it's serious, but the percentage will then determine where we're at. And the difficulty of this whole thing is we are really, the bottom line is we're at the mercy of nature. We don't know if we have a flood tomorrow.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be the one to tell you the date because nobody knows. And even Metropolitan is sitting there kind of looking back saying, no, it's not gonna be, it was gonna be 40. And the Water Control Resource Board, even they're kind of stepping back saying, we really don't wanna put the plug and make it go to no permits, so we're pushing all these ways, conserve. But, there are communities that have no water. They've always lived on groundwater and there is none.
They're already dry.
There is nothing. So I think you need to be able to tell anyone in the business, it's serious, be prepared, but it's really, we're at the mercy of what.
We'll have a
Major
comparison of
basis.
allocations next
I
month.
think there'll be a lot more certainty once Met meets in April.
Yep. Yeah,
And
until
Met
then, we
has
just
held
don't know.
back. Yes, Director Martin.
What's the percentage of water San Diego County Water Authority now gets from the state water project? I thought we get it all from the Colorado, we don't get anything from the state.
No, the Metropolitan gets part of their supply from the State Water Project. How much of it filters down to us, I don't know, it's a very small percentage.
Okay.
But if they don't get it from the State Water Project, they have to take their other supplies to meet that demand,
Which is our same.
which is our, same as us.
Okay, thank you.
But like Director Evans said, we hope in April, that's why the Water Authority staff now through, I think it's April 15th or April
It is
11th.
April 15th.
April 15th.
I thought it was, but-
That's when we hope to have pretty definitive, but the other part that's even trickier is even if they make the decision, they're not gonna do it until July. Which to me, there's gonna be a big rainstorm between April and July? Start the curtailment when you know you need to start the curtailment. I've never figured that one out. But they're saying if they do it, it'll be in July. I was downtown with some reps from Metropolitan last week, and they're just all rosy. No, I just don't see it. But next month, we should have a better comparison to show you what the impact would be. To ask for how they can do something to offset it, it's exactly that, it's called offsets. If you don't have capacity, if you don't have the money to build it, or if you haven't planned for it, and then what they would do is for every house that would come in, we'd have to develop a policy of you're paying for capacity for something that doesn't exist and you need the money to fund it and build it, because you hadn't planned on it. So you would tell them, okay, they've got to go to Craig's house, Betty's house, and your house, take out all the grass, put in this, and generate 500 gallons per day committed water, and then they could get one more house. That's the kind of that's about really the only program you have left to do offsets. We'd have to develop that program.
It's dire,
Yeah.
but not hopeless.
No, it's dire, it's not hopeless, but again, the fear is if they try to soft sell it, and we have a hot summer, and it get worse, they will not have any water left in storage next year.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They're at that pivot point. And that's all I have for my report.
Thank you, Dennis. And so we were going to ask our district legal counsel to give us some cheerful news.
Yeah, well, on that cheerful note, I did during this have an opportunity to research the important question that Director Hernandez had asked us earlier about tuition reimbursements. And I'm sorry to say that there is no legal or legislative authority that would allow for reimbursement of tuition for board members.
Is there an authority that disallows it?
Yes, I think there is.
That would be the question.
I think there is, and the authority that we have is our favorite statute, AB 1234, that was passed about 10 years ago. And it basically sets the guidelines and parameters for compensation for directors and reimbursement for directors, and it's crystal clear. This is for local public officials. Now, we can talk about county board of supervisors and city council members, and there's little differences there and there, but for us here, that's what we look to. And it's really clear that under the water code that we talked about earlier, that provides your compensation, takes care of your compensation for your attendance at meetings and doing your duties there. And then there's another statute over in the government code that's referred to in that statute, a series of statutes in the water code that we were talking about earlier. And basically, what it says is it's limited to reimbursements for actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of official duties. That's it, okay? Reimbursement, your travel, those are the things. It doesn't, we're not sending you to college. It's not part of your official duties. So I think it's, at least on the tuition issue, I think it's absolutely clear, guys. There's no way, even though because the employees, remember, the employees authority isn't, that's not what we're talking about in this area. We're talking about MOUs and negotiating things, and, those are benefits, stuff like that. So for an eligible benefit for directors, that's not one of them. On the other hand, I think it is acceptable for the board to have a policy, which is fairly common, which allows for the use of, iPads and, laptops. But again, it ties back to your use for official duties, okay? Like we're at the board and you're doing that, and, there's a little bit of, we might be playing some games on them and things like that that might allow you to utilize that laptop for these kinds of things. But it's pretty clear all over that this is becoming more and more accepted for special districts and city councils and county boards of supervisors to have laptops. But then we get into a whole other issue, and that's the email issue, and there's a case up at the court that's talking, in the Supreme Court that's talking about that, and we heard it the other day even in the State Department, and whether you had this email address or you had that email, so all of this stuff it's coming, guys. It'll be interesting to watch the developments from the Supreme Court on the email issue. But you are eligible to have, as long as the board allows or designates it, to have laptops and or iPads or whatever.
Does precedent now allow us to delete up to 30,000 emails?
I wouldn't even touch it.
Oh,
So
yes,
that's a whole
Martin,
nother
I'm sorry.
subject.
I don't have a dog in this fight, and I'm not an attorney, and I'm not going back to college. But you could make the argument that by us going to take classes at college would further our education, which is the same thing you send us to those conferences for, is for us to develop our education.
But that's authorized. That's what I'm saying. That type of reimbursement to go for education conferences that relate to your duties as directors, that definitely does it. But, that relates to it. But if we're talking about, hey, I want to go get, this kind of an art degree, or I want to get, and because, even though it was tangentially related, I just don't feel comfortable advising you that you wouldn't have some problems from the IRS. You couldn't have the AG. It's a myriad of issues there that would say don't go there.
But Jim could take a class from Ed, who is teaching water.
Well, yeah, water technology.
Water technologies?
Alamo or something.
I would.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't say it's a bad idea,
I'm not
but
taking
I
it.
think the tuition reimbursement is not where you want to go.
I hear you.
I don't think that's part of your official duties. It relates to what you're doing, but the conferences have been pretty well established that that's part of, hey, you guys need to get educated on this stuff. And we can bring people in here and educate you on different aspects and things like that of your duties and in your roles, but that's different than, hey, I'm gonna go get tuition just like we can for the employees, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Completely.
I'm going to, there's really nothing on San Diego County Water Authority that actually Dennis hasn't already spoken of quite eloquently, and so I'm going to go to Encino Wastewater Authority. And Director Hernandez?
We had a bang-up committee meeting this
big one
morning.
today.
Bang-up, I'm telling you. There was more things to do. We had the capital committee, the pyrolysis pilot study will become, going to commercial operation end of March and beginning of April. Everybody's very excited about that. We put together an emergency definition. I'm a little surprised on that.
Oh, that was so he could authorize, there was
Yeah.
nothing in the Encino policy that
Yeah.
allowed the general manager to take action in an emergency without getting authority from
Yeah,
the
it
board to
just
spend
wasn't
money.
even in there.
It just wasn't even in there.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
That- I got that.
Yeah.
So now they put it in there, so now we have an emergency opportunity. Let's see, we got our money from the fire, we got the money, and we look like we're gonna get the rest of it soon. Master plan for the entire facility, we've got a number of things that have been rehabbed over the years. There's still plenty more to do. Some of the things that are out there are ancient. I mean, 72, 82, and they showed us some pictures of pipes and important items that are kind of ugly. So they're gonna do that. Let's see, and we're going to, for those that have the nose thing on your dashboard, we're going to be cleaning up our carbon so that it's even less. They're gonna do a carbon replacement. And that's pretty much what took place in the
That
capital
was quite a
committee.
bit. How about you? Oh.
Got a quick question, and maybe I missed something. Why did Encino get money back for the fires?
Because of their insurance policy.
It wasn't those fires.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
no,
I'm lost here.
Oh, I'm
Wrong
sorry,
fires.
I'm sorry.
Wrong fires.
We had fire in our heating element,
Oh.
and to the tune of
Okay.
about 600,000+ or more.
Yeah.
And we fitted it, we got new policies in place, new equipment in place, and they paid us for having to take the biosolids and ship them to God knows where, as opposed to selling them. So we got money back on that. And so out of about
Okay,
a 600,000 plus,
I just didn't understand the fire.
Oh, okay, fine.
Trying to figure out Coco's fire.
we paid 50,000.
Cool.
Was our deductible.
Director Ellenbeck?
Good job.
As exciting as the capital committee was, it was the opposite for the policy.
Oh,
The only open session item was the amendment of the purchasing policy, like you had talked about, but the meeting was dominated by a closed session on labor negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
That was exciting, but I can't talk about it.
Exactly.
exactly. Very good.
That's why I didn't even bring it up.
All right, are there direct reports on meetings, conferences, seminars attended, et cetera? Director Sinella, followed by Director Martin.
I went to the Kawa breakfast
Tuesday.
on Tuesday, and there was a presentation by SDG&E. It focused mainly on renewable energy and most specifically on zero-emission cars and kind of what they've been doing and some of the efforts throughout the state of California and from the governor's office on, there seems to be a big push in that. So they're working hard on that. And then in addition to Kawa, I went to my first San Diego North EDC board meeting, and the presentation at that event was very similar to CSDA's last presentation. It was kind of more on leadership and kind of goal setting and kind of getting the board on kind of on the right track. So, I will say that just to kind of give you an update, they did send out the third Pulse, North County Pulse today, and the front page article with the Pulse is an article on the Carlsbad desal. Did we contribute to that as far as information, or did they go straight to?
No, Chris put together the basics of it, and then he just shipped it over to them. Then if they needed to format or change anything, they added to it, but Chris did the basics on it.
That's good. So that's probably in the last 5 weeks or so, that's 3 articles on water, which I think is pretty good. starting to influence that organization positively.
Good. Judge Martin?
Yeah, I have quite a few. Sorry to bore you, I'll try to keep them short. First was the Urban Water Institute Spring Water Conference out in Palm Springs. Very informative. I've circled everything that I went to. It was very interesting. We heard from Dr. Dan Kayan on climate, atmospheric sciences, physical oceanography, Scripps Institute. He was doom and gloom. He was saying there's no rain coming. Don't believe what they tell you about El Nino. We also heard from all types of people. Darcy Brook, Public Affairs, Municipal Water District, Orange County, hot and dry with a chance of chaos. What we need to do as far as outreach, what needs to continue happening as far as outreach. And that was, I'll stop right there because there were a number of us there. I'll let other people give more things on that. Then I think we met this month, I'm not sure, with the Finance Committee Auditor Selection Process. We met this month, one of the days.
Beginning of March.
Thank you. Beginning of March?
March 4th.
And we have that was very interesting. Thank you very much, Tom, for leading us through it. Looks like we have 2 meetings lined up this month to actually interview 3 firms, to select out, to narrow it down. We have a little cheat sheet here that we're going to go over with Tom prior to meeting with them, to make sure we ask them the same questions and score them. They all seem to be fairly well qualified. And I just came back from Water Reuse, which was up in LA. It was their annual conference. Interesting conference. It's interesting to a layman, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm thinking of 100% of the people, 65% were staffers, maybe 10 or 15% GMs, and the rest were the very limited amount of board members as compared to the others. And it was interesting the way that they see water reuse. It's like it's a done deal in their mind. And I'm smiling, and they actually use a new technology. Mike, you would have liked it. We came into one of the sessions and you could vote on some questions on your iPhone that would come up. I thought that was very interesting. And here we are sitting with maybe 250, 300 learned professionals, and they're only getting 80 responses. Me, I just looked at my phone, laughed, put it
Did
back
they
in my
give you the
pocket.
fob when you came in, or did you
No,
have to
no,
use
you
your
had to
phone?
use your own phone.
Oh, last one I went,
Fine,
they
get your
gave
own
you a
app.
fob when you walked
We had
in.
to download the app.
Oh, yeah, download an app, had to tweet, had to do all that stuff. So it was like, that's not gonna happen. But they only had 80 people respond, and the interesting question was, I really thought the very telling was, well, how many of you would hook up to it if it was available? And it was like 98%. And I went, yeah, okay. And then one of the other questions was, what's the biggest obstacle? Public acceptance, 70%. It's like, yeah, you're in a case where you know about it, you've heard about it, you're being brainwashed and educated on it. The general public walking down the street doesn't have that. And from, and I can say this, from a policymaker's point of view, an elected official's point of view, we all know who votes in elections on water boards. And that's the demographic that you have to reach. We know the tweeters don't vote as substantially. So although they might be better educated on water, they're not voting. So like I said to them, I said, I don't think you want to be the first one out of the box and say, hey, let's go do this, because you'll be sitting on the sidelines while 2 or 3 generations forward. But it was very interesting. The hotel we stayed at, I do have to mention, was the Biltmore, where they had the 1932 Academy Awards. And the thing that amazed me are the rooms were totally redone in 1960. And when I turned the shower on, I almost drowned. I have not had that much water come out of a shower since 1960. Jim, I don't know if you found the same thing. It was like, wow, very cool taking a shower like that, but it was very different. But the rooms were beautiful. I thought all of the programs were very interesting, very much up to date. I even did one that would have made James very happy. We were talking about leads and stanks and stinks and all these, and I'm going, it's way above my level, but it was very interesting. Because some of the things they were talking about, I understood from being there a couple of years. So it's the constant education that we get from those that is really very appealing. But let's talk to a lot of very learned people, and the thing I did come away with is that every district is very different. Every district is very different, and not one answer fits them all. You know, we're close to the ocean, maybe desal's our answer. Maybe reuse is the answer for Desert Hot Springs, because they don't have an ocean. You know, everyone's gonna have to look at it individually, and we're gonna have to use all these different sources to come up with water for the future, and it was very interesting. There was also a speaker there from Texas. Wells Fargo, Texas, someplace in Texas.
No.
Waco?
No, the
F,
ones
starts
that,
with an F.
they're using reuse
Yeah,
already.
Yeah.
They have.
Oh, they already are?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Oh,
they
yeah.
are.
Well, they're probably the ones that have lost the groundwater and there's no rain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Uh,
choice.
yeah,
They're in the
they're
direct-
completely out of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're completely, they're direct.
I'll bring that up on my
Okay,
comment.
they're direct potable, but I thought it was interesting, he didn't speak a whole lot on it, but I was, you know, almost wanted to say, I'd love to go visit that town and see how much bottled water is being sold. Because I understand it for car washes, I understand it, but some of it's kind of difficult through direct potable, but they have no choice, and it's 130,000 people they serve.
Yeah?
A very large area, but there's a lot of cattle and ranches and farming as well, so. Anyhow, that's enough, and I'll let other people chime in.
I think
Just-
Director
did
Snell
you
had a
mention-
question for you.
Did you mention that we had a meeting on the 25th as well? I didn't have that on my calendar. Is that, Tom, is that?
I have one,
There's two of them, one on the Monday and Wednesday.
So we're doing both Monday and Wednesday?
Correct, yeah, Monday
I'll
and
put that on my
Wednesday.
calendar.
Monday's
I'm free,
the-
but I didn't have it on there, so I'm glad you brought it up, Director.
Yeah,
Burke.
Monday's the one firm, and like that one might be 4 o'clock, I can't remember. And then Wednesday's the one that we meet a little earlier,
I have,
2:30.
I'm showing Monday at 2:30. Can we confirm that? Maybe send me an email?
I thought we were Monday at 4 and Wednesday at 2:30.
Oh, do I have it backwards?
Monday at 4
I
Monday
have
4,
Monday
Wednesday at
2:30,
2:30?
and Wednesday at
Well,
4.
So
well,
can we
for-
figure it
let
out?
us know.
So how do we feel about the finance?
so, yeah, just send an email out again.
Yeah.
And you guys trust us with your finances?
I trust you guys.
I didn't want to say that, Mike.
Not how it's scheduled, but
Oh,
I
you're,
trust you.
you're right, Mike, yeah, 2:30 for Monday.
Well, trying to get staff to go
2:30 for
past
Wednesday.
4 is a big
I
ordeal.
know.
It's their party time.
That's settled, so I believe Director Hernandez.
Yes, and it was interesting because the Urban Water Institute, we talked about this evening, about, you know, maybe we've topped out on
Oh,
our
pardon,
toilets.
yeah, demand.
Well, I think, you know, there's a whole new generation
Mhm.
out there, and for some of us late bloomers, we missed that first round because all the allocations were gone already. But, so, moving to the new generations of toilets, reissuance of shower heads, pushing, short of demanding, because I can't demand, you know, the school districts, the hospital, the bigger institutions on conservation. What was brought in both cases in the Urban Water Institute and in the reuse, the conservation is the lowest hanging fruit.
Right.
But, you know, we pretty much picked the lowest hanging fruit. The next big push is going to be recycling, and everybody was on top of it in all kinds of different ways. And it was interesting, the one, the outreach program that I went to, what was very telling was, and we'll pass this along to Chris, the need for multiple speaking programs for multiple age groups and multiple users, and it's interesting, they talked about the picking up trash, recycling trash, and cigarettes. We need to be more involved in our school districts, preaching the gospel of water recycling. And it flashed into my head in when I was going to high school in Michigan, we had a camp out there, Camp Dearborn, which the city of Dearborn, little donut inside Detroit, purchased 600 acres. And if you were a resident, you could go out there for free, do all the water things you do in Midwest. And the mayor had a special table, and when he showed up, he would just be buying popcorn and giving it out to these kids all night long. And everybody kept saying, well, Mayor Orville Hubbard, longest sitting mayor in the history of the United States. He was mayor when he had a serious stroke and couldn't talk. He whispered to his assistant, assumed she was telling the truth. And they kept saying, "What the heck are you doing? I mean, these kids are 8 and 10 years old." He said, "Yeah. And in
10 years.
15 years, they're gonna be voters, and I'm gonna be their man." And sure enough, so, getting out there now, getting this information to these young children, sooner or later, they're gonna take it to their parents, and they'll be the ones to go, don't turn it.
And that's why we've had such a big school outreach program for years. That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
that's where you get your next generation.
Exactly right.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that was very interesting in talking about getting the information out to our constituents, the rain barrel thing, but what they had, one of the districts, and they won an award for self-service reclaimed water.
Oh, yeah.
You drive up there
Mhm.
with a bucket
Yeah.
or up to a
That's up
300-gallon barrel.
along the coast.
And,
Yeah.
and got a little class, got a little ticket, and you could come back many times you want. And the first day, lines out the door, and those people, they knew that there was an opportunity. And instead of a 150-gallon bucket or barrel, drive over to Meadowlark and fill up a 300-gallon tank, how many ever times you want to
That's
do
what
it.
you use your rain barrel for.
You could do whatever you wanted with it, sure to drink it or bathe in it. But there may be something there. I don't know what the
Yeah,
chances are.
I
but-
saw that presentation too
Yeah, it
recently.
was very, very informative, and it sure, and of course, the last thing was our friend from Liebenheim, Kim Thorner, won an award for an advocate for recycled water. Well deserved. Everybody was applauding her. So
4 decades.
4 decades. Yeah.
Kim,
So,
Well, they
she's
said-
43.
They
Yeah.
said,
Well,
they
she started
said
when she was
3,
10.
they said 3 decades, and she corrected when she went on stage, said
She's
2
43.
decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's 43.
So
Didn't
tell
start
her,
until she was
tell her you
24.
heard, tell her you heard 4 decades.
Yeah.
but they did also have one on Escondido and what they're doing, and so
Yeah.
You just said it right.
there's some opportunities out there for us.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah. You're probably gonna get a phone call.
I gotta get a text from her.
I'm going to do my reports to save time to file, but I would like to say that toilet that Jim is talking about is 0.8 of a gallon. It is absolutely quiet. And I have grandkids that are petrified of the noise the toilets make, and I thought, this is what I need everywhere. And this company, Stealth or something, whatever it was, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, still.
They went in and retrofitted the entire Hilton with their toilet, and then they had the signs up there, and they had a sale. And I was hoping I would win a toilet, and instead, I was shocked to win an iPad mini.
Can
I
you-
know I have to
You should
claim
turn that
that,
into.
Can you trade it?
but
Yeah, that's great.
The district,
Yeah,
You'll
turn
love
it
that.
into this.
I don't have, do I turn the district? No, I don't think I do, but I do have to claim it.
You have to claim it.
Something like, or I'll pass it around. Greg's already claimed it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting, and I agree with everything else. And then this could probably come under the other, but I'm just gonna move it really fast to tell you, this isn't really a conference, but Greg and my daughter and I were up in Sacramento on Monday. Greg got his award. You can see it on Facebook on Luann and other things. But what was really unexpected, he got this big resolution, and it's like push you in and push you out really fast, but it was impressive. But Tony Atkins had done research, and she actually introduced me, and she mentioned that I was with Vallecitos Water District, that I was on the San Diego County Water Authority, and that I had been a council member on the city of San Marcos. And I
Wow.
thought, wow, that was a totally unexpected, so that was kind of fun. And then we got to have some actual private tours into some of the museum things, where we got to go in and literally look at the stuff that you normally look. It was really fun and exciting. And Tony is very, whether you like Tony Atkins or not, she's definitely very supportive about water in the state and that issue. Also saving elephants, I found out. Yes, Director Martin.
that's great. Going back to the .8, I did talk to the guy there about, well, how much are these toilets? He said that they're $175. They do have programs. And I said, well, suppose we wanted to try them out in our district, or we want to try them out in our city. Can we get 10 or 20? He says, call us. We're very much into going out.
Those right there?
Yeah. We're very much into going out and giving them trials, because my thought is because Director Hernandez brought up not too many meetings ago about going to the city council and having them change their codes. Well, my thought was if we got them, or if we give some to them, and they used them, and they worked, that they could look at their codes and say, you know what, maybe this is something we need to do.
Yeah, because the new resale real estate law coming in now is they've got new standards now. When you sell, it is your duty as the seller to retrofit to the new standards before you sell. That is
Right.
if it hasn't already kicked in, it's kicking in. But we did the same thing here, the
Low flow.
water-free urinal, the low
Yeah,
ones that we
yeah,
have,
yeah.
those were donated us examples to put in to show. So, yeah, we can do it.
And then I had one, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, and can I have a question on those? Because I saw those installed at a very large place, the waterless, and then I saw them taken out and the water ones put back. It's too expensive, I'm assuming, to keep changing the filters or whatever.
There's some maintenance that goes with
Yeah,
it,
that-
so it's not just a pure capital cost going in, it's an ongoing maintenance cost.
You have to be committed,
Yeah.
Director Pohl, former Director Pohl.
And it takes some special equipment
Yeah,
and
you-
training to get them
yeah.
out so you don't break them.
And
Right.
they have, the new generations are a little, last a little longer, but it's still a maintenance issue that if you don't want to dedicate somebody to do that.
You can
know,
imagine that many kids.
Well, these .8 toilets, I would definitely,
Okay, if you can leave me that flyer, I'll give
I
it to
sure
Diane.
will.
Just give it to Diane.
get a
We'll
hold
make
of
contact.
them,
I-
try some out.
Sure.
They were great. Every hotel room had it, the
Okay, yeah.
They were amazing.
They're not noisy.
No,
The other
they
ones
are
right now
so
scares the hell out of
quiet,
you.
Yeah, it's like
and
a
they're
jet.
not-
Jet.
The other funny thing was, we went to a restaurant in Sacramento and we sat down and we ordered breakfast and we ordered 2 coffees and my daughter specifically ordered water and the girl says, and I'll bring you all water anyway. And my daughter had to hold me down. Mom, don't be angry. Don't be angry. So say, don't you know there's a drought? She brought it back and we forced ourselves to drink it. Okay, I think we can move on. The next thing is, the end of reports is you've got a flyer on the what is it? The next legislative thing?
CSDA legislative.
That's it, CSDA, so I think we're okay. Do we have any comments for future agenda items? No, we don't. We will move to closed session.
Thank you.